Hi, everybody. Welcome to 5D Channels and Chats. I'm here with April Lindevald, and she is an intuitive counselor, psychic medium, and channel and author. Welcome, April.
Thank you, Rachel. It's so exciting to be here with you on this wonderful podcast.
I'm so excited to have you. Welcome to 5D Channels and Chats with Rachel Chamness. As a shamanic channel and mentor, I'll be sharing wisdom and healing from higher dimensions through channeling beings of light. You will also hear liquid Reiki shamanic sound healing, channels between intuitives, and discussion on higher dimensional healing and channeling. You'll find links and more in the show notes, so be sure to check them. You can find me at soundwavesheal.com and my Facebook group, 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions. So I've known April a really long time, and April's also a master student and a Soundwaves Heal practitioner. She's on TAG team. She's very involved in Soundwaves Heal. Thank goodness. I'm so lucky.
It's me that's lucky.
So April is best known for channeling Master Merlin, which is pretty cool, and we're definitely going to get to that. But I want to talk about a few other things she does. She's an intuitive counselor. She's been reading tarot for how many years? 35 years?
I was trying to figure that out. I think I was in my 20s though, and I'm like, so maybe 40 years.
I think it's
Um,
been 40 years. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. That was just because I was studying. I was always interested in spirituality, and I was reading books and hooking up with people that read the same kind of books and were asking the same questions. And one of my very dear friends was moving away and decluttering her stuff. And she handed me a deck of cards and a book and said, I think these are for you. And I was like, tarot? And she was like, no, it's fine. You'll find out. It's not anything scary. It's just a tool. So I kind of went with it and I started studying the book and I started practicing on all my friends, whether they liked it or not, for free. And then I was in New York City Opera at the time, which is something Rachel and I have in common that we're both professional opera singers, her as a principal and me as a chorister. And I would do readings for all of the opera people in the dressing room. And I wouldn't take any money at first because I was practicing. I started to tell people they could give me presents instead, just like whatever they thought it was worth, they could bring me something. A sandwich, a fruit basket, a piece of jewelry. And I got all kinds of incredible stuff. And it reminded me that when I was a teenager, people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I would jokingly say I wanted to be a hermit in a cave and dispense wisdom in return for presents. And so I was like, oh boy, it happened.
You manifested it. That's so cool. And so you've been doing tarot readings for a long time then, since then. You eventually charged for it, I guess.
Yes, eventually I kind of got my confidence up, and enough people said that I should be charging money, and I really, learned how to do it pretty well. And
Oh, yes. Very, very well. And you taught me. You're the
I
one who
have
taught me
taught my
tarot.
classes, and actually, the first time Rachel and I met was years ago in a class that a third party was giving on abundance, attracting abundance,
Spiritual
manifesting,
development.
spiritual development.
Yeah.
And we would meet on Tuesday nights, and I was really excited to meet her because it was another singer who was interested in these things. And we kind of hit it off, and then Rachel wanted to learn tarot. So, yes, you were one of my students at one point.
I learned so much from you. I really think tarot is a great way to understand and learn all kinds of symbolism. Like you taught me about numbers, colors, all the symbols of the tarot deck. I think those things are really important when we're building a sort of map in our head about symbols and what they mean, because when we do that, then our spirit guides can use that to help us communicate with them. So I think that is a really very important thing to do. I really
I
recommend
agree
tarot.
with you 100% that that's the most important takeaway from tarot because I really believe that's why I've changed my pattern over the years. I don't even lay out the cards in the way you see on television or the way you see most people lay out the cards in a form and where it lands means something. I just go with the symbolism and the colors and the numbers, and I kind of put all the cards in a big lump and draw as you would do with oracle cards, I guess, to get a message. And
Mhm.
for me, that constitutes a dialogue with our guides. So as you're
Yeah.
pulling cards, you're asking a question, getting an answer, and it works really well. So if you're just learning, you're beginning to sort of learn in your head all of these meanings or cement them for yourself, your guides will respond to what you think those things mean.
Exactly. And that's the most important thing. So that's where anyone can start with signs. I did that with signs for years before my clairs opened enough to receive psychic information a little easier.
Actually, I never heard of a sigil before I came to your class either. I never heard of it, and that's a very similar sort of thing where you're using like physical light language that you're drawing into this that has meaning that you don't have to understand in your head. You just kind of have
Right.
to absorb it.
Right. You don't have to. You can just know the intention. That's all you need.
I think it's remarkable.
It's fun. I'll be teaching that class in my upcoming retreat too. It's so much fun.
Very
I
cool.
thought in person that would be a lot of fun to do. Well, let's talk about Merlin. You channel Merlin a lot. Now, there is a 3 or 4 part blog series on my site, soundwavesheal.com/blog, with April and how she met Merlin. But tell us just a little bit about you and Merlin and your relationship, how you met, and all that.
Well, I'll kind of go backwards, I think, because I want to just talk about how Rachel and I lived in the same area. I'm on Long Island, New York, and we lived in the same area for a while. And then you moved away. And it might have been almost 5 years before we reconnected or more. I don't know. But when I found
More.
her again online, you were already establishing yourself as a very respected, intuitive teacher, reader, channel, all that stuff. And you were like, you had gone way past to learn a lot of things that I had never even heard of. And I was still doing tarot readings and still studying, but also kind of in a slump. First of all, COVID happened right very soon after that. And I wasn't in touch with anybody hardly. And I wasn't in touch with a lot of people who had the same values or the same understanding of the world or the cosmos. And when I found you and all the classes you were teaching, it was like Christmas. It was like, oh my God, there are people out there that still are doing this, and they absolutely are certain that certain things are truths, that there are unicorns, that there are dragons, that there are, masters that talk to us. And that we can now is the time when we can actually get ourselves connected with them and actually allow them to speak through us. And I'd had some experience with channels before that, but it was always like very rare and very like mysterious and hard to do. And Rachel's like the most amazing teacher. So I was in the channeling 101 class, and I actually was so indoctrinated with the idea that only certain people were born as channels that I think I was a little resistant. And everybody else in the class did their first channels, like, boom, boom, boom. And I was like sitting there going, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. It kind of reminded me of my old acting classes, where they kind of tell you, stand there until a feeling comes through you and do something or do something. And I was like waiting for that to happen. And I was always a big fail. So I was very upset because I didn't feel like I could do it. And you chased after me. You could see I was
I was
upset.
like, you can do it. I know you can
You're
do
like,
it.
"Oh, you can do it. What are you expecting to happen?" I think this is a
That's usually the problem. People expect some like thunderbolt from the sky.
yeah, I used to tell people, I used to say, they would say, like, "How do you know you're in being intuitive?" And I was like, "Well, not everybody gets a dead Indian at the foot of their bed, in the middle of the night who says, 'I am your guide,' and you kind of have to it's a lot more subtle than that a lot of times." So you helped me. You said, well, while you were struggling, did you hear was somebody in your head? And were they talking? And I said, yeah, I was seeing somebody. And they were like, well, were they talking? Yeah. Why didn't you tell us what they were saying? I said, because that's not really, channeling. And you were like, yes, it is. If you're translating for somebody who's there telling a message, that's channeling.
That's what channeling is.
So I started to just kind of allow it. And one of the first people that came through in the class was Merlin. And it was so exciting to me because I had been obsessed with wizards my whole life. I have been reading nothing but books about fantasy and magic schools and magical wizards, and just I never wanted to be the princess. I never wanted to be the villain. I never wanted to be anything but the wizard. In all the books, and I did that all my life. And then I had this incident when I was like in my 20s. I had gotten out of college and I went back to my parents' house and I kind of didn't know what I was doing next. And I was working in a factory, and I worked in a factory all day. And then I came home and went in my little bedroom and kind of read all day. I mean, all night. I read way into the night, and I would read all about wizards and fantasy books, the latest thing that came out. And lots of times I would fall asleep with the light on in my room with the book on me. People do that. And when we actually had real books instead of like Kindles and stuff, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd see I was still, the light was on, and I'd turn it off. One time I woke up in the middle of the night, I thought, and I looked around, and it was the same room, but it was different. First of all, it was clean. all the all the piles of crap were gone. I have my grandmother's like secretary desk that opens, and I had it like open with crap all over it in piles, and now it was open and it had nothing on it. It was clear. And then I looked again and there was a book on it. And it was one of those old things you see in one of those old movies, like a big leather bound magical book that's really thick with gold writing on it or something. And I thought, oh my God. And then I looked up and there was this guy, and he was like standing at my bedside, and he was taller than an average person. He had a gray robe that was very textured. It was like really numbly, like old wool or something, and big white hair, kind of like I have now, only bigger. And I think he had a beard, but he didn't have a hat. And he was looking at me with the most beautiful blue eyes I ever saw. And they were so full of love. People say that about Jesus, but it is true that the masters that are pure, the love that they can put through their faces is something like we have never experienced. And I just kind of sat there in the bed like, holy mackerel. And he didn't speak, he telepathed. And he kind of made it known I was to go look at the book. And I was like, oh my God, the secrets of the universe. I'm going to be looking at I'm going to find out something. And I was so excited. And I kind of like went over there and I looked at the book and the page was blank. And then I was like, what? And of course, immediately being self-esteem challenged, I thought, I must be doing something really wrong. Like, I'm not worthy of this. And then he said, look again. And I flipped some pages and they were all blank. And I was very, very upset. And he kind of smiled and nodded. And he was like, don't worry, it'll come. And I'll see you again. And then he disappeared. And when I woke up again, all the mess was back. And I knew it was like a dream, but it wasn't really a dream. So that was years and years and years and years ago. And I was very upset for weeks because I thought, what's wrong with me that I get these opportunities and I can't even follow through because I'm not good enough. I'm not pure enough. And I told a friend that, and the friend said, you silly, silly goose. Just that's not about you not being able to see what's there. It's about you writing it or making it yourself, like, yeah, no. So that was when I kind of knew. And then from there on, it was like a straight line with more stories that are in the blog too. But I won't waste time with that. I'll just say that I never believed that I could have this kind of a relationship with him until, oh yeah, she's got putting down that I wrote a novel also that was Wizard Central. And that was a big, big central force of my life. This novel is about wizards that have self-esteem problems, I guess, and they have to fight evil without going into violence and horrible things.
It's one of my favorite books. Yeah.
Thank
The
you.
Last Wizard of Henri Claire.
I swear that was channeled too. It was completely channeled.
Of course, yeah.
I was writing it during a difficult time of my life. I was writing it in little journals wherever I was with a purple pen. And every minute I had spare, it was always there. And I was just like, shh, and I really felt like I went to the place and was living with those characters. Very bizarre.
Well, the book is so good. I feel like I'm with the characters when I read it. It's very good. You guys should check it out. It's on Amazon.
I'm writing a sequel and it's stalled a little bit, but it's coming. It kind of creaks along a little bit. It's a little less flowy than the first one, but that's my fault because I got entangled in life,
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Merlin and Atlantis, how we see him in Atlantis or how you see him or what he tells you. Or
now
maybe
I feel like we have this really tight relationship where I can call on him to be there to channel almost any time, and he's always there. And also I ask him questions and stuff for myself. And he has told me that we knew each other in Atlantis, that he was definitely incarnate in some kind of a body for many, many years. And back then in Atlantis, people lived a very long time, hundreds of years. They had many different healing techniques and they lived a pure life. And they were not completely three-dimensional either. So he was there as a high priest and a teacher and different levels. He actually was a young man there for a long time. And then he was an older man there and he was a priest and an influential figure. and was there for the fall. And
Yeah.
we knew each other, and probably for a long time or in several incarnations. And
I see you with him in many incarnations when I see our lives in Atlantis.
it treats me like I'm somebody special to him. I know he channels through many people and he's very busy, but I feel loved, when he's with me. It's a really energizing experience. And I feel his energy when I call him in. I feel this like frisson of like comes all through my body, and I could like feel him being there. And then I ask the pendulum or my finger or whatever. I'll say, "Are you there?" And I'll get yes. I know I'm not making it up, basically.
Right. You're not making it up. It's amazing.
So if you want to ask him some questions about Atlantis, we could bring him out if you
I
want.
think that's a great idea.
All right. So
Okay.
just need a second to just kind of like take a drink of water and ask him to come.
Okay.
He definitely has told me that he's interested to do this.
Oh, how exciting. I hope I think of good questions.
Whatever you're curious about, see what he said. And at this point, I'm like in the dark too. I have no idea what he's going to say. So this is fun for me. I have to be in the state of faith. So just for the sake of the people that are watching, that are learning to channel, for me, a hook is to find some sensory details that I can hook onto, like a smell or the feel of the robe or his hands or something. And then it makes me feel like, okay, there he is.
Yeah, that's a useful tool for sure. Hello, Merlin. Are you there?
It is so good to be with you again. It is a joy for me to be a part of this group where there is so much enthusiasm for the future and for learning and for expanding one's horizons and understanding of things. You know me, and you know I am primarily a teacher. I am an alchemist and I am a mover of energies and I am a manifester, but I am primarily, for my joy, it is teaching. And so, with so many open minds who are interested in hearing what I have to say, it is a very great boost for me. And so, do ask your questions, and I will do my best to remember.
Actually, I wanted to ask you first about learning and what you would recommend for, well, first for beginners and then for advanced light workers of, what we should be focusing on at this time.
Oh, there is so much coming into your world that is new to the consciousness of the average human, which makes it interesting to choose a path. And each will choose their own path, especially in the advanced stages. You will begin to specialize and be drawn to the things that are most resonating with your energy colors and your gifts, so to speak. However, the beginnings of awakening for most people, especially since some of you are facilitating that in others, it is good to know what might be helpful for everyone who first begins to question what they have been told up to this point. And I think that the first thing one needs to learn is to let go of the illusion of God or source or higher being separate from yourself and above you. That is a difficult hurdle to overcome because of religion has a grip on many people's hearts from their childhood. But it is important for people to understand that they are not merely moving in a plane, in a two-dimensional plane through their experiences on earth and begging for assistance from above, basically, or perhaps being punished from above even, or tempted from below. It is all a matter of dimensions. If you are learning to live in a multidimensional world, you understand that you are source energy, which has come through the many dimensions to have an experience in this three-dimensional world. And therefore, you are able at certain points of your life to see your journey on this chessboard, so to speak, from a point above it. You can live in a multidimensional world because you, who you truly are, is eternal and is closer to source and is higher and not necessarily, it is choosing to forget all that and to move through this space and in two and three dimensional worlds to have these experiences and to have them affect you and to have them challenge you, so to speak, to grow. But in order to solve these issues, as the Oracle Diana Cooper, who we love, says often, three-dimensional problems can only be solved with fifth-dimensional solutions. It is not about you struggling through and trying to untie the knots, so to speak, as you go forward, because they are easier to see and understand from above. So if you understand suddenly that you are not to beg for assistance, you are to find your higher self and connect in a way that you can feel powerful enough to choose your own route, so to speak, and to clear away your own issues. Now, that did not answer your question. The question is how do we get people to understand that that is the first thing? Who are you? Who are you? Are you a person that a God put down on this planet for what reason? To worship him, perhaps, or to play with, or to tempt and poke at and give torture to? I don't think a benevolent God would do those things, and yet so many on your planet believe it. So this is the first myth to dispel. And so the origin story, who you are, where did you come from, how many places have you been, what kind of parables can you use to explain how the soul jumps in and out of bodies throughout time and place and throughout planets and dimensions in order to grow and experience and enjoy, but that it can never die, it can never be truly harmed. And so that is important to impress upon the people you teach. What materials you use are your choice. There are books that address this. I myself have channeled through this channel. There is a video of our origins, which could perhaps open some eyes, but I don't begin to believe that it is the only way to go. That is the most important thing, to get people to question their relationship with the divine, and not to throw the baby out with the bathwater by saying there is no divine. You are a piece of the divine. You are all powerful in within the rules of the cosmos, the law of attraction, the law of manifestation, the law of love, which is the primary law of all. And the most important other thing to impress upon people is that love always wins. Love is the primary energy in the world, which controls, cures, purifies, lifts everything. And therefore, anything that is not of love, in other words, violence, fear, doubt is normal and natural, but it is not an energy that will help you. It could lead you to question, which could lead you to knowledge. But fear, violence, rage, anger, revenge, holding grudges, hatred, all of those things are counterproductive and only will bounce back to harm you, and will harm the earth, the communities, the countries, the whole planet. And therefore, espousing that all religions originally brought with them, all of the great masters who came to your planet to teach, taught love, taught oneness, taught the simplicity of reverence for life, of respect for one another, of being compassionate and patient and non-judgmental. So these are the touchstones of the beginning things. And then later on, it is exciting to add the added attractions of showing that there are wonders that are invisible, which you do, which you attract many people by offering them a path to unicorns, which they have always loved, a path to dragons, which they have always loved, a path to wizards, which they have always loved, a path to magical creatures and gods and goddesses and elementals and fairies. And knowing that these are beings that exist expands your horizons. Your deck of fey beings opens people's minds to the idea that where they tread, there is activity going on all around them that they must respect and that they would be curious about, which helps them to cultivate the attitude of wonder. And the attitude of wonder and awe about their planet and its beauties and all the beings upon it and all that is visible and all that is invisible helps them to have positive attitude and hope, and vibrate at a higher vibrational rate, not in such despair facing the things that are obviously wrong in your world at the moment, obviously in conflict. How am I doing so far? Are we?
I love it. Well, what would you say brings us closer to this higher dimensional frequency for ourselves? What can we do to facilitate this feeling more?
It is certainly different for each. Some people are moved by nature, and that is a very big help. When you spend time out in the beauties of nature, there is so much happening there, and there is the elementals are there all around you, and the whole organization and the peace and the consistency and the dependability of what has been designed for your pleasure and all the beings that enjoy it besides humanity. So that is an important way to bring people's vibration up. Some people find the human creations of creativity, whether it's enjoying the creations of others. Some find special kinds of music, or looking at paintings or amazing sculpture or artwork that lifts their spirits, that helps your vibration as well. But even better than that is to engage in your own creative acts, which it is a mistake to believe that because you do not make things that are worthy of a museum, or make you a rock star, that your creativity is non-existent or not worthy. The act of creation in itself is when you are closest to being God, because God is all about creativity. It is what God does. It is what Source does. That is the whole purpose of Source, is to expand itself in joy by creating. And so when you are creating something, whether it be a poem or a picture or a sigil or a song or even a sewing thing, whatever you are making that is from your heart and it is beautiful to you, and that you are putting your best energy into, will lift you, because the act of creation reminds you who you are at core.
That's wonderful. And so when we do this, we create more of what is source inside of us. Is that how you would explain it? If
We
source is
wake
not
it
above
up.
us?
It is there, but we wake it up. We remind ourselves that, oh, this is our purpose. Our purpose is not to work 50 hours a week and run around and do chores and argue with one another and make money and then take a few days to relax and regenerate. No, no, that is not our purpose. Our purpose is to be creative souls that walk the earth and enjoy the bounty around us and add to it as we are specially able. And that helps you to understand, because you feel those moments. In those moments when you are creating, you lose track of time, you forget about your worries, you do not have the energy to hate anyone or be angry or be depressed, because you are in the moment of making, which is so uplifting. And so that is one of the greatest healers that there is. Nature and creativity, those are two of the greatest. Learning something is also one of the pillars of being high vibrational. When you learn something, whether it be through reading or through a class, such as those that you teach, opening your eyes to just, oh my goodness, there is so much more in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in your philosophy, Horatio, as Shakespeare said. And when you learn, the neurons are firing and you feel more expansive, and expansion is another hallmark of Source. And of course, one must not forget that it is important to arrange for quiet time, whether you call it meditation or centering or focus or just quiet, silent time, because this is when you hear the voice of your soul. Meditation is always a great idea, but for those people who say, I can't meditate, it is too difficult or too strenuous, or my thoughts get in the way, if you just say to them, yes, well, just take 5 minutes to just shut down and tell yourself, I am listening. I am listening. I am breathing. I am in my body, but I know that I am not my body. And I am listening for messages, which could be in the form of words, or could be in the form of a feeling or an energy that washes over you, a calmness, a sense of being loved or cared for. Of course, it is the antidote to all of the haste and busyness that is the hallmark of your society. Small amounts of silence will make great differences in the way you approach the rest of what is demanded of you in your day.
I love that. It's beautiful. I have one question for you.
Hmm.
You know, people are always wondering if we might mess this up again. When we go into the fifth dimension, could we have a repeat of the problems of Atlantis? Or are we more assured that this time, we'll have a more even high vibrational experience?
Hmm. Well, you will be surprised to know that I cannot necessarily say with 100% confidence what will happen in the future. Even though I exist for the most part outside of time, the future, past, and present are a little bit irrelevant in my realm. However, they are constantly morphing and changing because of free will, because humans decide and humans are given free will. That is important part of the agreement, basically, that free will is how human beings move through their journey by making choices and learning to make better choices. I will say that with 90% certainty, however, that there is no chance this will go in the same way. That despite what you think about how humans have not learned anything, and yes, there is evidence that you are slow as a group, but it is not true that you have made no progress. And there is, first of all, the amount of assistance and energetic support you are getting from every other being in the cosmos at this time is unprecedented in the entire cosmic, well, since existence began anywhere. You have assistance from galactics who have already made this transition. You have assistance from the masters who have already been human, perhaps, and um, ascended themselves. You have assistance from the entire angelic kingdom, from Source itself, and from all of the Fae and elementals that are around you, supporting you and whispering in your ear every day. So you have a great deal of help and leadership and guidance. But you also have the memories. Some have not accessed these, most have not yet accessed all the memories, but you have the memory of errors from before, which are there to help correct your course. And I do not believe it will be possible to fall into the same patterns, because there will be enough people who are resistant to shut that down immediately if it ever should come to a single person or a single group trying to sabotage the process. The process is well underway. The ascension is happening, and we are even ahead of schedule, and the changes are happening, and some of them are a little turbulent, but they are all going in a positive direction. And you will find yourself in a different world. And it will be so wonderful and such a relief to those of you who are transported there that I do not believe there will be any chance that there will be any backsliding at all ever.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm so glad to hear it. I didn't think there would be, but it is a question people ask a lot.
And you are hearing again and again now that there are those who are not going to be ready to move into this new kind of world. And they would be the people most likely to somehow sabotage it. But they will not be allowed yet to go there, because those souls are choosing to finish out their education, so to speak, um, move it to its three-dimensional ultimate ending before they will be ready to make that transition. And so the transition will be a little bit on a stepped level. Some will go before others, and the others, some will insist on staying in the three-dimensional world for a while, as turbulent as it is. And once they will have to pass certain vibrational levels in order to come into the ascended version of Earth. And therefore, they will be ready to live in community with reverence for life, in love, in harmony, and there will be no problem.
Well, that makes so much sense to me, because Atlantis, they started in the higher dimensions, but we've already had this experience. And of course, we're not going to do anything to go back to it.
No, your Bible, the Bible is a very special document. Although people, they take some of it literally, that is not the intention. A lot of it is story, and story has symbolic meaning. And the story of the Garden of Eden, of the knowledge of good and evil. Eve took a bite of the apple, shared it with Adam. It made them be expelled from paradise. Well, they were living in a paradise. This is like Atlantis, perhaps the story of Atlantis. Everyone was living in a sort of a paradise in perfect harmony, and everything was running very smoothly. And the biting of the apple is the offering of the temptation of the knowledge of good and evil, is the knowledge that there might be other ways of doing things besides what was being done. There are those who were interested in seeing. It may start innocently with a curiosity. What will happen if we have free will? What happens if I try to have a little more power on my side? What happens if I think I know better than others and I would like to stack the deck in my favor? What happens if I try scientific experiment for pure the pure scientific curiosity, but without any thought for the consequence on others or on the environment? And then those things skyrocket and they expand to have a shadow and grow. And the emotions of greed, the emotions of lust for power, lust for things, fear of not having enough, which was silly because there was always enough for everyone there. But there are those who felt it was never, once you have a void that you feel you are disconnected from your creator, you can never fill that void. And so you want to fill it with other things that are immaterial. So the fall of Atlantis was about a sort of an innocent slide into a place where free will choices mischaracterized the energies that were given and the talents and the technologies and the powers that were given. And over some generations, it took over more and more people, and those that were living in joy and in harmony perhaps did not notice until the problem had become too much, too big to stem the tide. There were too many people who were falling into this trap, and it became impossible to stop the downward spiral. Even as I speak this, and I am far away from being a human with emotional baggage, it's still, in a way, I feel my broken heart when I think of how we watched things fall apart. There was great sadness
I'm
among
sure it was
those.
hard
Yes.
to watch. Well, I'm looking forward to feeling and seeing what a high dimensional world is like.
There is so much that is still in confusion for you, for all of you across the board who have intuited bits and pieces of the information. And the truth of the matter is, there is much that we are not completely allowed to divulge. We cannot tell you exactly how it will be or exactly how it will happen. We cannot tell you the events that will lead up to this. We can only keep encouraging you to keep your eyes up, keep your vibration high, stay on the path, believe that there is purpose in all of this, because there will be some rocky moments, most of the worst of which you will be protected from as you are on your journey. But it will be confusing. And not all of the visions that all of you all over the world have for what this new world looks like are a little like the tale of the blind people and the elephant. That, that tale where there is an elephant and many blind people are standing around it, and one is holding the tail and one is holding the trunk and one is holding the leg and one is holding the tusk. And someone says, "What is an elephant?" And one says, "It is like a rope, he is holding the tail." And another says, "It is like a hose, he is holding the trunk." And one is holding the ivory of the tusk, and he says, "It is like a tool or a knife." And one is holding the leg and says, "It is like a tree." And that is it. You all have bits and pieces of the vision, and we cannot yet divulge the whole story for you, because you need to move into it as you are ready and find it for yourselves. And it will be much more joyful and fun that way anyway. But you will get enough bleeding through, enough promise, enough shining, enough wonder, enough hope to keep you focused on keep walking in the right direction.
Well, it's good that we still get to have all of our journey and everything as exciting as it's supposed to be, and yet still get a little glimpse that everything's going to be okay from ascended masters such as yourself. So we really thank you for telling us what you do.
I wish to make a remark about this recent cosmic event that happened in your area. You had mentioned, I believe, that some people felt fear about this or something about the energy as being negative. And do not spend time with this because it is a mistaken idea in many ways. Yes, there are electromagnetic things going on, et cetera, and cosmic dances and some things that are out of your purview to really work with or understand. But for the most part, look at the positives that this generated. In a severely divided time in your culture, so many people look to the sky to see something that they may only see once in a lifetime, and they gathered in groups and they did not ask one another who they voted for. They just got together to witness something amazing and celebrate it together. And there was a moment of unity, of understanding that we are all here. You are all humans on a planet which is a bit of a whole cosmic wonder, which has been assembled for you by higher forces, where everything works like clockwork and it all moves and all is bigger than your imagination, which makes you at the same time feel both small and slightly insignificant, but mostly safe, mostly knowing that all is well and that all is being handled. Because after the darkness happens, the sun always comes back out again. And the shadow has beauties of its own to share. And so there were so many beautiful metaphors and then also beautiful results of this event that there was nothing to fear and only to be appreciated as a pause, a moment of stop war, stop arguing, stop yelling at one another, and look above to how much more awesome your cosmos, your world, your solar system is and how it functions. Does that help you?
Yes, I feel like it also ushered in some new energies for ascension,
Yes.
but did it?
Yes. I mean, I did not mention this because not all humans are aware of this. You are, of course, but between the recent equinox and the earthquakes and the eclipses and various thing cleansing, unfortunately sometimes destructive cleansings that happen in your world, there's huge amounts of ascension energy being pumped into this world to accelerate the process. And we always urge you to continually ask that all of the energies that come in and all of the cleansing and the transformation that happens at a pace and in a way that is as gentle as possible and does the least amount of damage to both life and possession. When you do that, it helps greatly, but it is counteracted by the collective burst of fear and negativity that others are sharing. The others who are unconscious are fearful and they are directing energies to be more destructive by their fears that such will happen. Whereas you are using your energies to say, yes, come and do your work, ascension energies and cleansing energies, and do what you do and do it as gently and as compassionately as possible. And so if you can achieve a balance with that, it will help greatly in the transitions. And yes, you are going to feel after this eclipse, there is ascension energy coming individually as well that you are all feeling, which is stirring up some things and, last bits of shadow that have to be dealt with and overcome. But
That's
you
what
are
I figured.
you are far along your path, and so you recognize these days or these weeks when things seem chaotic, and you can transcend them with a certain amount of grace and ease and our help.
I have one last question.
Yes.
April has written a beautiful book called The Last Wizard of Henri Claire, and I was wondering if she channeled it from you or if this is a story that has taken place in another universe or a parallel universe. I'd like to know a little bit more of its origin, if you can tell us.
As she tells the story of how she felt this come through her, yes, I was knocking at the door and I was undoubtedly involved in opening her mind to the whole idea of channeling at all. And I was behind some of this because I knew that she loved working with me, and working as a wizard herself has made her aligned with this whole idea of alchemy and magic. Yes, those characters came forward on their own. And it's hard to explain this, but there are alternate realities and dimensions where these stories unfold and these things are happening. There are pieces of those places that are all almost all fantasy kingdoms that are invented and are richly designed by authors. They come from the imagination, but where does the imagination go? It is tapping into other dimensions. It is tapping into other times and places. It is not just inventing things. It is pulling them through portals of connecting with people on the other side of those portals. And so, yes, there's an element of this being a real story that has really happened. They were telling her what to put on the page. And one could, the psychologists on your planet can argue that it is some sort of deep psychological place that was being reached. But beyond the deep psychological place is a connection to all beings in all places, in all dimensions. And that is where stories often come from, where they are truly happening. The multiverse is a very complex and very interesting subject to deal with. But yes, these are real people and real characters in having a real adventure in another place and time. But knowing them expands one's horizons and holds a mirror up to your own experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. That was beautiful. I'm so glad to have you tell us all this beautiful information. And we really covered a lot. So
I am available. I love to share. I love to teach. I love to be with you. I actually, I suppose, in some ways, I miss the social element of being three dimensional, and this is the closest thing we have now to bringing back a little of that, the joy of being separate and yet connected. And so, call upon me at any time.
I will. Thank you so much for coming.
Blessings to you, and great blessings upon the work you do.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I loved it.
I love him. He's just like so fun.
I know. What a beautiful lesson about God and not being separate. And I could ask him a million more questions.
Well, we'll just find other opportunities to do that. We just will, because he just wants to. He wants to talk and talk and talk.
Well, we're going to ask him and you lots of questions in the Live in 5D, which is part of my 5D Daily Facebook group on Thursdays when we're live. You'll be on there twice after this podcast.
And thank you for asking, because I love it to be with him, and he really likes to talk to people.
He does. Well, thank you so much. So everyone who's listening, if you're interested in reading April's book that we mentioned a few times, it is called The Last Wizard of Henri Claire. But you can also reach April either through my website at soundwaveshill.com in /tag team. You can see how you can contact her there, or you can find her at Be the Wizard on Facebook, or you can reach out and have a session with Merlin or have a reading. You can have both a tarot reading and a channel with Merlin, which is my favorite thing to do in one of your sessions. And she's also a Soundwaves Hill practitioner, so you can find her on my website for booking as well.
Which Thanks is a great gift. You can have your own channeling with Merlin personally, or a tarot reading, or both. And Rachel has graciously allowed me to sort of piggyback on her website as a tag team member for private readings.
So fun. I love them. Well, thank you so much for coming. I'm looking forward to our next talk on Live in 5D. And I hope we'll see everyone here there as well.
Hope everybody enjoyed this, and it was fun for me. And thank you so much for asking us to come.
Okay, bye everybody. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode. If you are a healer or spiritual entrepreneur, present or future, I'd like to invite you to my Facebook group, 5D Daily Spiritual Healers in Higher Dimensions, where I'll be live for more discussion and questions on Thursdays. I'll put the link in the show notes. I'm Rachel Chamness at Sound Waves Heal.